At midday in the Brabanthalle Den Bosch, the riders in the 83rd Tour de France made their exit team by team onto the open roads of Holland. Only the fourth time in history the race has started in the Low Country. Once outside, the 197 riders now head for Paris, where the race will end on July 21. A non-starter in yesterday's opening prologue, the Italian Roberto Conti, the winner at Alpe d'Huez 2 years ago. He developed a fever only hours before he was due to start the prologue. The route today could not be flatter, with no change in elevation at all throughout its 209 kilometres. There'll be 3 bonus time sprints on the way. And the atmosphere beginning to build here at the finishing line, and so too are the crosswinds, and that's what the riders fear most in Holland. Well, the prologue time trial yesterday was only about 2 kilometres away from the finish today, and the top riders in the Tour de France all took places in the top 10. The best of them all, Alex Zülle, behind Chris Boardman at halfway, 2 seconds in front of him at the finish. Miguel Indurain, well, a more cautious start. He conceded 12 seconds and finished only 7th. But even so, he's still the man to beat in this year's Tour de France. It's top marks in 3 of the 5 categories for Miguel Indurain. Occasionally, though, he has been left wanting in the mountains. And if his team is suspect, as we think it is, it could make him fallible in 1996. Laurent Jalibert's one advantage over Indurain is his immensely strong team. The man who gives the French hope is now the world #1 ranked rider. He's a winner and he has a great confidence in himself. Tony Rominger equals Indurain in our points table because he has a strong team to back him. The Swiss superstar has also beaten Indurain in both mountains and time trial in recent years. At 35, it could be the last chance for him to claim the Spaniard's scalp. Evgeny Berzin is weak on experience, having retired in this race last year, but he can ride well in the time trials and he can climb. If his team can back him, he could become the first Russian to win the race. Alex Zülle is part of Laurent Jalibert's strong Once team. The Swiss rider's 2nd place overall in Paris last year has left him believing in himself and a great backup to the Frenchman. We give Chris Boardman a low assessment because we feel winning is still beyond him. He's never finished the race. But the 27-year-old still promises so much. To survive the mountains could mean a high placing in Paris for him and make him a favourite for the future.
This year, yes, it is the great unknown. And I'm trying to think of it as a challenge and not a problem. It's a long race, twice as long as anything I've ever done before. So a lot of people keep biting off a little bit more than I can chew out of their enthusiasm for somebody to get behind and support. And that's nice, it's what you call a nice problem to have, but I feel that pressure. But for me, I mean, to take the yellow jersey yesterday would have been great. That would have been a little bit of insurance, but that's gone, and that's life. Because yesterday I had to make the decision, am I here for 3 weeks or am I here for 10 minutes? And I had to make the decision 3 weeks. So if I have one really good day in the mountains where I'm riding with the front group and I can come into Paris in the first 20, that for me would be progression. And I wouldn't say I'd be ecstatic with that, but I could be content with that, and it would be something to move on from the future.
And we all wish Chris Boardman the best of luck in this year's Tour de France. He is wearing the green jersey as points leader today, by the way, after finishing 2nd in the prologue yesterday. At the first sprint for time bonuses at 38 kilometres at Boykel, the winner there was Jan Zverada from the Paneria team. 2nd was Mario Traversoni, and 3rd was Mauro Bettin. Now to the weather, Paul.
Well, the riders face strong winds today with gusts of up to 60 kilometres an hour in the late afternoon, a high of about 18 degrees Celsius, but there's a strong possibility of showers towards the end of the afternoon.
In that prologue, by the way, Max Chiandri finished 97th, his time there 11 minutes and 45 seconds. The sprint at Eindhoven, 3 Italians, Ivan Serioli, Mario Traversoni and Mauro Bettin taking the prizes there. And Mario Cipollini started yesterday in red shorts, not part of the official strip of his team. He was fined £125. So today, guess what colour shorts he came out in? Yes, you guessed it, red. On to the 3rd sprint at Hertogenbosch. The riders coming through with 68 kilometres to go. Another great sprint, and we're going to see some good sprints this year because all the big fast finishes are here. Zverada again scoring for the Czech Republic, and Paneria, he gets the 6 seconds bonus. Mario Traversoni, the newcomer to the Tour this year, he was 2nd, and then the first appearance of Jamaleddin Abdou-Japarov. He took 3rd place. And then with 50 kilometres to go, there's been a number of crashes all day, but this the most serious so far, as Frankie Andreu of Team Motorola on the right of our picture crashed, taking down with him there Sergio Previtali from the Paneria team. At first it did appear as though Andreu may have broken his collarbone, but he did continue and is now racing back up to the field. And the action being started by the Dutch Rabobank team at that accident which delayed Frankie Andreu. We've caught a glimpse of him chasing back amongst the team cars, so I think very soon he will be back in this main field, which has come back together again. The crash there seemed to taking out a little bit of the spirit of the move, but what Paul Sherwin did note, that in the front of the attack as the crash happened, Miguel Indurain was paying very close attention. He was right up there.
Most certainly, and I think more importantly is the fact that he had 3 or 4 teammates there as well. A lot of people have said that Indurain's team is a lot weaker than it was last year, but you could see when that danger was there, Indurain was surrounded by 3 or 4 teammates, and he's got to be quite happy with that.
And the main field now putting the race under extreme pressure. We haven't dropped below 35 miles an hour for the past 15 minutes. And the team causing the trouble was Rabobank, but right in to mix it with them, the Once team of Alex Zula. A chance perhaps to weaken the Banesto team of Indurain. The sprinters, remember, their teammates will try to keep this race very much together, because, and there's another crash here right at the front. Well, the camera's gone away from it, but here rides a touch with us, a Kelme rider who has seen his front tyre has come off the rim there, probably caused by the accident. This is about the 5th shunt of the day, and it looks as though the Kelme rider here has hurt his right leg. Now let's have a look what happened. Right at the front, what they've done to avoid riders, Paul, they've caused another ricochet crash.
Well, what happens is when you've got the wind coming from the right-hand side like it is, a crash always goes on the left-hand side of the road, and what happened was the Kelme rider got projected across, and you see one rider going straight over the top there. Superb bike landing because he didn't go down, but this is the danger when you have the crosswinds.
And there's a Paneria rider down here, and it looks to me one of the riders there is the Refin team rider. 1 or 2 Refin riders down here. And the rider who's just putting his crash helmet on is Leonardo Pippoli, who rode so well in this year's Tour of Italy. That's what's causing the consternation. And Pippoli speaking to Cristian Salvato. And a lot of confusion here because it's the first day on the Tour and the riders and the mechanics aren't quite getting it together quick enough.
Well, certainly, and there are still 197 riders in the race, and these roads are extremely narrow, which is why people are taking so many risks to try and stay up in the front 15 or 20 places, because that is where it's the safest. And as we've seen early on in the stage today, Miguel Indurain is always up at the front, and the team setting the tempo at the moment is that of the Banesto squad. So Indurain showing who's the king. He's showing that he's the man that wants to go away and win this Tour de France again.
I'm making sure he's right near him too. I just got a glimpse of the yellow jersey of Alex Zula, and remember the green jersey being worn today by Chris Boardman. He is also up near the front, so he too is keeping his nose clean, and the chaos being caused from mid to the end of the 197 riders. All everybody breathe in, and those little bridges come all of the time here as we race along the dikes of Holland. The wind continually changing direction. The diagonal line at the front of the peloton at the moment indicating the wind is coming from the top right-hand corner of our picture, and the rest are trying to shelter behind the lead rider. Very difficult racing conditions. The sprinters, they are men who love to live dangerously, will enjoy the sort of finish we've got lined up for them down in Den Bosch. But now it is Miguel Indurain's Banesto team have been told to get to the front and stretch this race out and try and bring a little bit of common sense back into it.
Well, certainly what they're trying to do here is to keep the speed up, to stop riders from behind coming up round the outside and stopping Miguel Indurain from getting swamped there. You can just see a little bit further back now, a little glimpse of the Italian national champion there, Mario Cipollini, moving to the front as well. They realise this is a dangerous part of the race, and they want to be up here because this is the safest part of the bunch today.
And this is one of Cipollini's teammates on the front here, wearing black shorts, you know, because that's the official team strip colour. And although there are other teams wear red shorts in this race, it's not officially registered that the Seiko team should wear red shorts, and thereby Cipollini coming out in red shorts is confusing the race referees. So they fined him yesterday, and I would think they're going to fine him again today, but he might well get the last laugh. This is very much a sprint finish for Mario Cipollini, the self-proclaimed fastest man in the world.
Well, you can see from the helicopter shot here just how much chaos there is a little bit further down the bunch. Everybody wants to be on the left-hand side of the road because that is exactly where you're out of the shelter of that wind that is really pushing the riders down the left-hand gutter there, and that is when they take risks just to try and save a little bit more energy, and when you do that, the crashes happen.
And all the new national champions sporting their national champions jerseys today. We've got Bjarne Riis in the white stripe and the red jersey of Denmark. Moving very swiftly towards the lead there was Fernandez Jeans, who won the Spanish championship. The strong Mappe team have also the Belgian champion on that team, Johan Museu, and the world champion in Abraham Alano. Carlo Finco, who was involved in a little shunt, is now rejoining the bunch here, and I think that's his first tour as well, Paul.
Most certainly, he's an excellent rider. He rode the Tour of Italy a couple of years ago and rode extremely well on the Festina squad, but since then he's returned to Italy, and this is the first time he's come back to one of the major tours. But you see all the time the movement in the main bunch here is everybody wants to be up at the front there. Top 15 or 20 places is the safest place to be, but there are 197 riders want to be there.
Well, the very first day of the big tour, it's a case of all of the riders getting to know each other. They've got to live with each other now for the next 3 weeks. And they are the best of friends when they're off the bike. The vast majority of them do talk to one another. And so they don't cause these crashes in order to get rid of each other. They are survivors, and they do their best to warn other riders in the bunch when they see a crash. And you saw that situation there where a Rosato rider actually indicated the central reservation approaching the middle of the peloton.
Indurain's team there has actually caused a little bit of a calming down effect now on everybody. He's gone to the front, put the pressure on and lifted the pace, which has told everybody that he's the man in command. So I think there'll be a little bit of a truce for a while until we get closer to the finish.
So Cipollini, the man in the centre of our picture with the green top to his racing jersey and those illegal red shorts, he is the man we still think might take out the stage.
The unmistakable sound of the Channel 4 Music Library 60s compilation takes us back to 1968 today, the first Dutch winner of the Tour. If you don't recognise him, I'll tell you who it was after the break. The first Dutchman to wear the yellow jersey in Paris was Jan Janssen, although interestingly it was the only time he wore it in the whole of the 1968 race. Going into the final day, Herman van Springel was leading, but Janssen won the stage, a time trial from Melun to the capital, on his only tour. Now, in a country of 15 million people and 16.5 million bikes, you'd expect Holland's chosen means of transport to come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. In fact, a quick walk round Hertogenbosch suggests the opposite. Bikes in Holland apparently come in one size and one shape. In cycling terms, Holland is an evolutionary mistake, like those remote islands where species long since thought to be extinct are occasionally discovered. While the rest of the world has developed titanium frames and grip shifters, this place is still populated by lumbering fixed-wheel monsters, the land that gears forgot. The Dutch themselves, though, seem blissfully unaware of the time warp they're riding through. What's the attraction of these old bikes?
Old bikes? This is a new one.
I don't know really, but I think because they are very cheap.
Yeah, we ride bike since we were little, so it's in the genes, I think.
Of course, one of the reasons that bikes here look 40 years old is that some of them are 40 years old. And perhaps that's why they outnumber the population by 1.5 million. While the Dutch grow old and die, the machines just brace themselves for the next occupant. And really, there's been no need for the classic Dutch bone shaker to evolve. The closest you'll come to a climb here is tackling a range of speed bumps, 30 of which, incidentally, have had to be removed for today's stage. And anyway, anything you need, you can add. Whether it's a windscreen or somewhere to keep your specs so you can see as far as your rearview mirror, the Dutch are endlessly inventive with what and who they manage to get on their bikes, transporting cargoes that would have most of us tipping over on our way home from Tesco's. And as usual, regardless of how outdated their technology may look, the Dutch thinking on cycling is years ahead. Thousands of miles of cycle paths, city centre bike parks, and the national policy of promoting cycling as a primary means of getting about, all of which has made the old bone shaker almost fashionable. The perfect machine, in fact, for the downshifting 90s, although of course downshifting is the one thing you can't do on it.
Now, remarkably, having said all that, the most basic and therefore most desirable bone shaker in town this week isn't even Dutch. This is one of a batch of bikes that local businesses have imported from Vietnam. No gears, not much in the way of brakes, and made largely, if you can believe it, out of bamboo. Now, eventually these things are going to be sold off to raise money for disabled children in Vietnam. But in the meantime, the Dutch, in a joint display of environmental consciousness and media awareness, have lent them to us lot as free press transport. And having broken the habit of 5 tours now by riding a bike on camera, back to the men who do it for a living.
And one or two of the riders living dangerously here, Gary, because of that crash we've just seen with the rider from the Kelme team holding his right leg. That was Buenahora, who has now announced his abandonment from the race with his injuries, and that's a great shame because the Colombian was a marvellous climber. He finished 10th overall in this race last year. He would have been riding his 3rd Tour de France to Paris. Now let's have a look at yet another crash which has just happened as riders slammed into a central reservation, and the man sprawling out across the middle is Thierry Marie, who's one of the veterans of the Tour de France, 3 times the winner of the prologue and wearer of the race leader's yellow jersey. He went down, and then there was a ricochet of crashes, and this rather nasty one, leaving Luc Leblanc, the former world champion, lying on the ground. But I'm very pleased to say he remounted, he's back in the chase at the moment. And then on the other side of the road, it was Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov, who had just taken a place in the sprint at Hertogenbosch. He was also involved in another ricochet crash further up the peloton. So a lot of crashes today. All of the riders are back on their bikes except Buenahora, who has abandoned from his crash. And as we look down now, we can see the whole of the pink jerseys of the Once team here keeping this race pretty steady. Well, this is Diaz-Zabala at the moment, who's driving, and Stevens in 2nd place, and all of them coming through. And further back in the line, the orange top jerseys of the Dutch Rabobank team. Well, they are the riders who are hoping to win the stage, of course, because we are very much in Holland. And in fact, it's Stevens at the front now. And there's Neil Stevens, who wasn't named in the complete lineup early on in the team, is now very much their super domestic. Rabobank on the attack, trying to get clear of the field.
Looks like Van Bon trying to go clear here. He's got the former Olympic bands on his jersey there, trying to get clear a little bit further back. In fact, it's still the Once squad keeping the pressure on at the front there. It's always Neil Stevens keeping the pressure on, trying to keep the Once riders up at the front and out of difficulty.
So it's Danny Nelson, in fact, who's put in the attack, the current world amateur champion. And by the way, he's the nephew of the Dutch television commentator, so just about 4 places from where we sit on the tribune, he's starting to get a little bit excited. So Danny Nelson out on the attack. He has finished 3rd, it was, in the Dutch Teleflex Tour earlier this year, which is run by a young American rider, Tyler Hamilton, from the US Postal Service team. And now it looks as though he's got a little bit of a gap. It's the first real gap that anybody's been able to get on their own over the race all day.
Well, this is the team that really wants to win here. Rabobank, they put an awful lot of money into the Tour de France coming here to start in Den Bosch, and this man was a former world champion. He was disappeared from the sport because he had a heart problem, and his team manager at the time, Kees Priem from the TVM squad, wouldn't renew his contract. He returned to the amateur ranks and now is back professional again with Jan Raas's Rabo squad.
So the amateur world champion clear on his own at the moment. He's opened up quite a big gap here. So now the counterattacks are going to start to try and bring back Danny Nelson. And this is the Agrigel team, one of the wild card teams. If they hadn't have been French, they wouldn't have been in the Tour de France this year, in the lead at the minute. TVM, another Dutch team, trying to get in on the action as well. And they're all riding around the pink jerseys of the Once to try and start the counterattack.
But this is not the way to bring back a breakaway like that into the fold. You really need an organized effort at this stage in the game. You need a good team of 5 or 6 riders to go to the front and work consistently together to pull back these breakaways. This looks very much like Voskamp from the TVM squad, who's putting the pressure on. He realizes that it's an effort in vain, so he's going to sit up and wait for the main field to come back.
I think he would have liked the Frenchman on his right shoulder there to do something about the chase, but I think the Frenchman's reached his limit at the moment. Well, it wouldn't be Holland, would it, without that sight, and even the Dutch flag on it as well. This country has turned out in style to make the Tour de France very welcome with the prologue yesterday. The weather has been very unkind to an organisation which has spent over £3 million to bring the race here for just 2 days. Tomorrow we go right across Belgium and down into France. And the bunch coming back together at the front, way up at the top there of our picture, the lone figure of Danny Nelson. I nearly said Wilfred Nelson, the former champion of Belgium. He had a very bad crash this year. But talking to the riders over the weekend, another operation very shortly for Wilfred Nelson. I know you'll be interested to know exactly how this very popular rider who has ridden so well in the Tour in the past is, and he is hoping to resume his career next year. There's Nelson under the banner.
10 kilometers to go for this man. An awfully tough effort at this stage of the game as well to hold off a chasing bunch. 6 miles he's got to stay at the head of affairs. That's going to take him around about 12 or 13 minutes to do. And now those two riders who were away beforehand are back in the main field. But still, the teams of the Italians, the teams from Gay Wiz, who've got some very good sprinters, teams of Mario Cipollini, they haven't yet taken the race into their hands.
Well, the team from Fenaria with Jan Verade, and I thought we were going to be able to commentate on a rider from the Czech Republic winning today, just before the Czech Republic go on stage to try and win the final of Euro 96. As Verade has been sprinting very well today, but he was involved in the crash earlier on, and we're not too sure anymore if in fact he has rejoined this big field.
Well, Jamaluddin Abdujaparov is still a little bit further down the road at the moment. The lead of that man at the front, Danny Nelson, is hovering around 21 seconds at the moment, so it's going to be very difficult for him to hold on, because as we get closer to the finish, there will be an amount of urgency coming into the teams of the sprinters. And in fact, TVM starting to ride to the front a little bit now. Another Dutch squad who would like their man, Jeroen Blijlevens, to get to the finish line here in first place.
And Blijlevens was the big name on the books for us at Dunkirk last year when he popped up and won a stage. He didn't finish the Tour de France, but he is sprinting very, very well again this year. 18 seconds, so the tempo is being having its effort told on Danny Nelson. Who's probably being inspired here by the continual shouting of his name by the Dutch people. But now there is a reaction, and it is coming from Gay Wiz, TVM, Lamparia. And so I do think that perhaps Jan Verade is back up in this lead group. Otherwise, they wouldn't be chasing down the leader.
Well, everybody wants to win the first stage of the Tour de France. It is extremely important, though, to get an organised chase at the front here. No 3 or 4 members of the same team can be seen at the front. So for the moment, everybody's just trying to find out who's the strong team, who's going to take over the lead out for the sprint finishers.
Well, we have all of the top riders in the world in the race this year for overall contention, for the time trials, for the sprints and for the mountains. The only man we're missing, of course, is the injured Marco Pantani, and we hope he will be back in the Tour next year. 13 seconds is the gap. Pantani, by the way, had a very serious crash in Milan-Turin at the end of last season, and that crash costing him a badly broken leg when he hit a car head-on that should not have been on the race route, and he is now undergoing a long term of convalescence, but he does hope to regain all his magic climbing power that took him to the top of Alpe d'Huez and Gouzenège in the Tour de France last year. He'll be back, I'm sure of that. He's the only real big name who's missing from the Tour this year, and I think if it does come down to the sprint today, it's going to be a superb sprint right down the long straight with a tailwind. It looks as though Nelson wasn't too sure which way to go there. I don't think there's so many people here, but I think he's lost his impetus now, and the field are closing in on him quite quickly.
Incredible crowd, though, turned out in this event. But this is the dangerous thing when you come into the towns nowadays throughout Europe. These roundabouts are very, very difficult to negotiate, especially when you've got 197 riders taking all kinds of risks to stay at the front of the pack. One of the Rabobank riders there put his hand in the air. It may well be that he's got a softening tyre, which will try and signal right the way back to the main field so that his car can come up and get his wheel changed quite quickly.
And this is the Roslotto team, who's also driving at the front now, because they have Alexander Gonchenkov on their squad. And Ferragato, another rider who's a good sprinter. Gonchenkov, a few years ago, was involved in that very bad crash with Laurent Jalabert and Wilfred Nelson. And he received a broken wrist, but he's come back well, and this year having his best season. Won a stage in the Tour of Italy. There's the Eiffel Tower, a bit early, only by 3 weeks, and we are in Holland, but even so, this town paying tribute to this marvellous event.
Well, there's another time check down to 10 seconds. It's not going to be very long, I don't think, before these riders pick up Danny Nelson, and then it will be interesting to see just exactly which of the top teams of the sprinters takes over control, because as we get so close to the finish line now, somebody has got to start to organize the team lead out, because you have to be convinced that your man is the one going to win, and I feel sure that it will be the Seiko team from Italy, the team of Mario Cipollini, because they are such a well-drilled squad when it comes to the final 5 kilometers.
Cipollini winning 4 stages of his home tour, the Tour of Italy this year, and winning with ease many of the stages, but believe me, it's a different race to the Tour de France. This race is under the eye of the world, watched by millions of viewers every day, whereas you can hide a little bit in the Tour of Italy. It doesn't receive quite the same publicity. And now Cipollini knows he's up against a lot of riders who really feel they must win for their sponsors. It'll be a very interesting finish today. Danny Nelson, the rain on the camera lens now as he races towards the finish in Den Bosch. The rain is still falling, but not heavily, I'm delighted to say. With Nelson here just hanging on. If our camera could just swing back, I think we'd realize just how close this lot are. Martin Den Bakker bringing the race through, the new champion of Holland. The Rabobank boys in 4th and 5th place there are being washed away with the surge that's coming from TVM. They're trying to get Blijlevens up towards the front.
Well, certainly, but you see the 3 riders at the front of the bunch as well there are the Seiko team, followed by the man with the red shorts, Mario Cipollini. Super Mario, he can sense now that the victory could be his, but still all the time everybody trying to move up to the front there. That is Nelson. He realizes now that it was a good chop opportunity, but it's not going to work today as the main field brings him back.
But at least he tried, and it could have worked. Now we've got the jerseys of the TVM team trying to come up here at 5 kilometers to go. The riders with the red sleeves, and the one rider who got with the red crash helmet, the other one with white, they are the teammates of Mario Cipollini, and tucked there somewhere with those red shorts on, but in the same top jersey will be Cipollini himself. And also the Rabobank team are staying up here. They do have a sprinter as well in Leon Van Bon. He won the stage of the American Tour du Pont this year, as he did indeed last year, and he also won the overall sprint classification there. Now the TVM team drive on. They have on their squad, amongst others, they've got some very good riders, but Servaes Knaven, the ex-champion of Holland, is also on this squad, riding in his first tour. And now just watch the crush behind as all of the leaders try to get through to front as we're coming up to 4 kilometers to go.
Well, in 3rd place there is a man who didn't nearly make it to the Tour de France this year, Jesper Skibby, who in fact had an attack of epilepsy earlier in the year, and he's had some kind of treatment for that, and the doctors have said that it's safe for him to start riding again. But you can see now there are 6 or 7 riders from the Seiko team moving up to the front. They're waiting now for their turn to turn on the gas and set up the final lead out for Mario Cipollini, who at the moment is riding in about 10th position.
Martin Den Bakker right in the centre of our picture at the 4 kilometers banner. This big man who's just picked up the Dutch Professional Cycling Championship. He was the amateur champion before he turned pro, and so he's had one of each. Although nowadays, as of this year, we don't talk of amateurs and professionals anymore. They are called elite riders now, all of them qualifying for a place in the Olympic Games in Atlanta if they're lucky enough to make the selection for their country. Miguel Indurain will be in Atlanta. He's going in the time trial to try and win a gold medal there.
There, just on the right-hand side of the screen, is the green shoulders on that jersey of Mario Cipollini's. He's looking at his teammates. He knows that he doesn't want to move too early, and he knows a lot of riders will be using him to judge their sprint on, because that is what the game goes on between the sprinters. You have to choose one or other sprinter and then base your sprint on him, and everybody knows that Mario Cipollini is the fastest man. 3 kilometers to go, but look on the left-hand side there, Miguel Indurain riding at the front, realizing he's got to stay out of danger.
Indurain is the rider about 2 men back here, so that white helmet on, just popping in and out of our picture, riding very, very strongly at the front here. Now, Indurain can sprint, and let us not forget that, but he doesn't take part in the sprints because they are always dangerous. If you're aiming for the overall victory in the Tour de France, you don't mix with danger, only if you have to. But today, because of the crashes, he quite clearly feels he must use his strength and stay right at the front and stay away from possible falls in the middle of the big pack. And the speed being put on by the Dutch at the front looks, Paul, as though it split this field into a small leading group at the minute.
That's another reason why Miguel Indurain wants to ride near the front, because a slight split in the closing 2 or 3 kilometers of the race, and there is a serious split can cause 10 or 15 seconds, which at the end of the Tour can end up between winning and losing.
Well, this has been a rather tough day for the riders in the Tour de France. The big peloton has been beaten and battered by the crashes, and now we've had over the last hour, I would think, a terrific speed of around about 45 kilometers an hour. That's about 30 miles an hour average. 2 kilometers to go now. The Seiko team of the man with the red shorts, Cipollini, is about 4 or 5 men down. Have got him right where they want him in their slipstream, and the train is beginning now to lead him out towards the line.
Well, this is the ideal way to lead out a sprint. Have 3 or 4 teammates. The man at the front now will do a long turn of about 1 kilometer, then they'll try and keep the speed up so that nobody can come round that man Mario Cipollini and swamp him and put him into a position where he has to make maneuvers to come round them. Another man moving up there very cleverly as well in a black and red jersey, if you can spot him, is Andre Schmeel, a superb sprinter as well.
And he is a member of the Belgian Lotto team, Andre Schmeel, former winner of the Queen of the Classic races, the Paris-Roubaix. And Indurain still there in the centre right of our picture in that white helmet, actually mixing it with all of them now. But a lot of riders are getting mixed up here. We've also got the German champion creeping in now. Christoph Henni's just gone off picture to the left, and he's thinking of his team leader, Eric Zabel, who got 2 stage wins last year. This is going to be a terrific finish.
Well, coming down the outside in the red jersey now, in fact, is Bjarne Riis, the man who finished 3rd last year. There is Schmeel on the left-hand side. The impetus has gone out of the Seiko lead-out. They didn't have what it had to take to keep the pressure on. They knew they had to keep Mario Cipollini up there. There is Andre Schmeel leaning on somebody. The sprint is going to go right down to the line here. In fact, Johan Museo is starting to move up there now, but again, Seiko take over control. They keep the pressure on. Cipollini moving up into 3rd place.
Dead straight to the finish, and there is no turns now, but in fact the Seiko rider's had enough. He's swung across, and now it's going to be to the pure sprinters. That's Schmeel, the little man with the black helmet on. He's been washed away. Now we've got the riders from Bogart, I think it is, from the Rabobank team. We've got Museo on the far left. Now comes Cipollini in that green jersey. Always looks to see who's around him before he makes the final kick. Usually comes up the barriers. That's why we can't see him at the minute. But here he comes now. Zabel is in there as well. Now Cipollini in green. Blyleven is on the far right. Cipollini's coming through very, very quickly, and he's been boxed out of it. He has been boxed out of it on the line, and the surprise winner from the Gant team right on the line was Frédéric Moncassin, a terrific sprinter in his own right, but I bet he never thought he was going to climb over the shoulders of Mario Cipollini today, but he did. The winner, Frédéric Moncassin of Chris Boorman's Gant team. And just look at this now. Moncassin in the white saw his chance. He came late out of the slipstream of the self-acclaimed fastest finisher in the world. He had read it to perfection. He was gaining all the time on Cipollini, and Cipollini was finished 10 lengths before the line as Moncassin kept on pushing and took it right on the line. A terrific sprint for Frédéric Moncassin. That's why they brought him, and he's given them a very early result. Here from the aerial view, a lot of movement here, as in fact Cipollini tries to crush out Moncassin there. Moncassin checks his bike and still has speed to move back behind Cipollini while the race was running away from him. It's a long straight sprint, always difficult even for these men to judge the absolute distance to the line. There was a lot of time here for everybody to recover, and so as Zabel and Blyleven were making the run for the line, then came Cipollini. Moncassin did tremendously well to recover from that crush by Cipollini, and then came over on his right-hand shoulder, and by the line he had it pretty convincingly. So Frédéric Moncassin of France has given them a very early victory this time. And I'm actually hearing now that Mario Cipollini has been disqualified from that 3rd place for barging down on Jérôme Blyleven and Frédéric Moncassin just before the line. So this is the confirmed result of the stage. A win for Moncassin. Blyleven 2nd, Jan Zarada promoted to 3rd, and Nicolas Minali is 4th. Mario Cipollini is pushed back to 37th and last of the group. Frédéric Moncassin on the podium. He will now get the leader's green jersey on points. What a great start for Boorman's Gant team, but Boorman himself, well, he lost 15 seconds, the race splitting in the last 3 kilometres.
Real surprise, actually. Fred wasn't the surprise of the day, because Fred's been going really well. I'm rooming with Fred at the moment, and he's feeling good. And he was really nervous, and he only gets nervous if he knows he's really in with a shout. Today was his big test to see if he could beat Cipollini, because he hasn't been up against him since Paris-Nice, and obviously he's passed that test. So I've been keeping this jersey nice and warm for Fred. I think he'll be taking it over from here on. For the rest of it was a bit of a bad surprise, because it's split with just 3 kilometres to go, and there's just nothing anybody could do about it. So it was a real surprise.
Overall then, Alex Zula keeps his leader's yellow jersey. Evgeny Berzin comes into Bourman's place now, second overall. Abraham Olano, the world champion, is third. Frédéric Moncassin is fourth. Chris Bourman slips down to 8th place, 17 seconds behind Alex Zula. So as the crowd head for home, I can tell you to complete the picture that Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov finished in a small group of riders, almost 10 minutes behind today, so he's in for a very tough Tour de France. Tomorrow the race says goodbye to Holland. It'll go across Belgium. It'll have its first stage finish in France. Our programme will come to you at 6 o'clock, so make that a date. You know, the Tour de France always brings out the best of a rider, none more so today than the sprinter Frédéric Moncassin. It is an event which evokes emotion.